The designers behind Volvo's XC70 were the first to realise that a large all-wheel drive estate car with a modicum of off-road ability and SUV styling cues could tempt buyers who couldn't quite stomach the thought of a fully fledged 4x4. In this much improved second generation guise, it offers an efficient drivey D4 diesel engine for owners happy to stick with two-wheel drive, and across the range continues to offer either a stepping stone or an alternative to SUV ownership.
Not everyone wants an SUV, but quite a few people like that kind of vehicle's lifestyle image, rugged look and spacious practicality. These are customers that Volvo has long targeted with this car, the second generation XC70. Now you think of Volvo as being masters of the Scandinavian winter, but in fact it took them until 2002 to bring us an SUV. 3 years before their XC90 arrived though, the Swedes were dipping their toes into 4x4 territory with all-wheel drive versions of their large V70 estate. You could have the basic car with 4-driven wheels, but for really rutted farm tracks, something a little more sophisticated was required with greater ride height. First badged the XC, then the Cross Country, the resulting design became a fully fledged model in its own right when relaunched as the XC70 in 2002. We're looking here at an improved version of the second generation XC70 model range, launched back in 2007 to further target the growing market for spacious estate cars with rugged looks and a modicum of off-road ability. Cars aimed at buyers who secretly crave an SUV but don't want to be seen in one. In 2013, this model got a mild facelift, but the really significant change came a year later with the introduction of Volvo's first homegrown engine, the 2-litre D4 drivey diesel unit. That created a package we'll be driving here and revitalised a range I'll be guiding you through. With a high centre of gravity and near 2.4 tonnes of gross weight, the XC70 was never going to be the ultimate driver's car. But you could argue that it's close to being the ultimate driver's compromise. Unless the optional 4C active suspension system has, rather unwisely, encouraged you to throw the thing around, you'll find it pretty much like a standard V70 to drive day to day, complete with slightly vague steering and ride quality that's better at higher speeds than it is around town. Yet venture onto the dirt and you'll probably find that it will do 90% of what most SUV owners require. You shouldn't read too much into that, as in general these requirements don't tend to be too onerous. Still, a raised 210mm ride height that sees this car sitting 59mm higher than a standard V70, and to suit the seasons, an appropriate set of winter tyres, should both help your XC70 deal with muddy car parks and snowy snaps in its stride. The stats certainly look good. There's an approach angle of 19 degrees, a departure angle of 23 degrees, and a breakover angle of 19 degrees. All these figures significantly better than the car you'd think might be a benchmark model in this class, Audi's much pricier A6 Allroad. All this does not a Land Rover make, but Volvo have at least borrowed the concept of the clever hill descent control system originally developed by the Solihull company, which uses the ABS to ease the car down extra steep, slimy slopes, keeping 10 miles an hour as a maximum. So far so good then, but you might notice that I've got this far without mentioning the feature that you might expect to define this car: all-wheel drive. That's because the entry-level D4 drivey 2-litre diesel version I'm driving here doesn't have it. So in choosing this base XC70 variant, you're essentially paying quite a lot over the cost of the brand's standard V70 model for plastic body cladding and an increased ride height. Every other XC70 model in the lineup does feature all-wheel drive, but that drivey power plant I just mentioned isn't fitted to any of these variants because in its initial guise, almost unforgivably, it wasn't engineered to work with a 4x4 drive layout. In this case, a sophisticated Haldex setup using an electronically controlled hydraulic clutch to distribute drive to whichever wheels can best handle it. The Drive E unit's absence across the majority of the XC70 range is a huge pity, as this 181 brake horsepower new generation engine is, in almost every other respect, the ideal power plant for this car. 62 miles an hour from rest occupies just 8.8 seconds en route to 130 miles an hour, and there's a potent 400 newton meters of torque, so it's virtually as fast and responsive as the priciest diesel in the lineup, the most powerful 215 brake horsepower 2.4 litre D5 XC70 variant. Yet it's significantly more frugal and economic. What I'm saying then is that if you can justify buying this Volvo without all-wheel drive, then the 2-litre two-wheel drive D4 diesel package works very well. Many potential XC70 customers, though, will see drive to four wheels as being a non-negotiable, and for them there are three further engine choices in the lineup that can be matched to all-wheel drive. The old 2.4-litre Ford-derived diesel continues on just for 4x4 customers in 181 brake horsepower guise, where rather confusingly it's also badged D4. And in 215 brake horsepower guise where it's badged D5. Thus powered, an XC70 D4 all-wheel drive model makes 62 miles an hour from rest in 9.2 seconds en route to 127 miles an hour, while an XC70 D5 all-wheel drive variant trims those figures back to 8 seconds and 130 miles an hour, doing so with a rather delicious snarl as you accelerate through the gears. The only other option is the minority interest 304 brake horsepower petrol T6 all-wheel drive flagship version, which manages 62 miles an hour in 6.9 seconds on the way to 130 miles an hour. The XC70's rugged SUV styling cues are just enough to set it apart from its more restrained V70 model stablemate, as well as the scratch-proof protective cladding along the car's flanks and arches. There are chunky front bumpers and chromed door scuff plates. XC embossed roof rails are a standard fitment, and purposeful silver front and rear skid plates leave onlookers in no doubt as to this car's dual-purpose role. Otherwise, the practical square-back silhouette that we expect any big Volvo estate to offer remains, with its bluff vertical tailgate. Look a little closer though, and the careful details please, like the way that the climbing waistline creates a forward-leaning dynamic stance that's further reinforced with the help of the black pillars between the side windows. As for the most recent aesthetic changes, well, you'll really have to know your XC70s to appreciate them. Owners of earlier second-generation models may notice the smarter front grille with its larger brand badge, the daytime running lights and the added matte silver touches that aim to give the car a more upmarket and luxurious feel. At the rear, there's a completely redesigned bumper along with smarter tail lights. Overall, though, Volvo hasn't been diverted from this car's raison d'etre, lugging gear. Raise the optionally powered tailgate and a 575-litre boot is revealed. Now true, that may not be as much as you'd get from, say, estate versions of the Volkswagen Passat Alltrack or the Skoda Superb Outdoor, but there's still quite as much room here as any normal family, equestrian rider or antique dealer will ever need. Let me put Volvo's case over in practical terms. There's room enough here for a washing machine with all its packaging, or, according to the Swedish brand, 5 large suitcases plus an extra medium one and 2 rucksacks. If you're going to be carrying heavy items regularly, tick the box for the load-compensating suspension option. Just as important is the way you can use all that space. I especially like this shallow hinged compartment on top of the boot floor. Lift up the flap and you can mess up that floor with muddy stuff. Then when you remove your wellies or whatever, the flap goes down again and you don't have to worry about cleaning the cargo area carpet. Well, not immediately anyway, out of sight, out of mind and all that. You can also specify a reversible waterproof mat to cover the entire base of the luggage area. But if you put it down, then you won't be able to use the aluminium rails and movable anchoring points that are featured on a cargo area floor that, to save your back, can also be specified in sliding form to get heavy items in and out more easily. Practical touches include an optional dog guard and a handy flip-up load divider to restrain smaller objects. Plus, you'll also find luggage nets and hooks to help secure any items with wayward tendencies. There's a 40-20-40 split in the rear bench, so that long items like skis can easily be poked through, one of no fewer than 16 different loading combinations. And if you completely flatten the rear bench, a process that, as an option, can be electrically powered, then up to 1,600 litres of space is freed up if you stack to the roof. If that still isn't enough, then there's a fold-forward front passenger seat so that you can take longer items like kayaks and surfboards. So, it's good for packages, but what about for people? Well, take a seat in the rear and you'll find that 3 fully sized adults will just about fit comfortably, enjoying decent standards of leg, head and knee room, as well as these neat vents in the B-pillars. For parents like me, there's also the useful option of 2 integrated child booster cushions, one on each side of the rear seat, which can be set at 2 different heights, thereby accommodating a wide range of child weights and ages. If you've money left in the budget and are particularly keen on keeping the little ones quiet on longer trips, you might also want to tick the box for the rear screen entertainment system with its twin 8-inch rear screens and DVD player. Up front, you'll find a cabin built to withstand a lifetime of hard use. With smart and durable fixtures and fittings, it isn't only the engines that are rugged. At the wheel, you don't get the high driving position that Volvo XC70 and XC90 owners love, but with multiple adjustment possibilities for both seat and steering wheel, it's easy to find the perfect driving position, and the seats are amongst the most comfortable you'll come across. In terms of aesthetics, this is an example of Scandinavian design at its very best, with this trademark super slim floating centre console, simple instruments and switchgear ergonomics that are a match for anything from Audi or Mercedes. The idea is that, like IKEA furniture, this cabin should be typically Swedish. Comfortable, simple, intuitive and visually pleasing. And broadly it is, now thanks to a subtle redesign which has introduced smarter materials and silk metal frames around the air vents and light controls, plus a redesigned gear knob and lovely touches like this frameless rearview mirror. My only gripe is with the rather fiddly electronic handbrake. One of the nicest touches that's worth shelling out a little extra for is the high-tech TFT instrument display. With the flick of a switch, you can choose between 3 different dial layouts. An amber backlit elegance setting for comfort-orientated day-to-day motoring, a green backlit eco setting to help you drive more economically, and a red backlit performance mode to better suit for more spirited driving. That'll be new to buyers who may have owned an early version of this second-generation model, as will be the clever Sensus Connect infotainment system with its 7-inch colour screen. As a driver, you've the choice of going online either via a car-mounted 3G, 4G dongle or by using your own mobile phone. High-tech features include a voice activation system that works on all music sources and the industry's first in-dash fully integrated voice search Spotify application. It's also possible to share a Wi-Fi network with everyone in the car. XC70 pricing ranges in the £35,000 to £43,000 bracket, with the 2-wheel drive D4 diesel variant that I've been trying here with its efficient Drive-E engine being the most affordable variant in the lineup and the only one not equipped with all-wheel drive. At first glance, asking prices across the XC70 lineup make this model range as a whole look quite a bit more expensive than the standard V70 design it's derived from. But of course it would be, not only because most XC70 variants have the added advantage of all-wheel drive, but also because this car's lineup dispenses with the entry-level trim and lower-powered diesel engines that you get in a V70. Take all that into account, then compare like with like, and you'll find that actually the differences between the two models aren't really that great. As an example of that, I'll tell you that if two-wheel drive is sufficient for your needs, it would cost a premium of no more than around £1,500 to go from a V70 D4 like this to the equivalently specified XC70 D4 that I've been trying here. If you are sold on the idea of an XC70 D4, then you'll need to add a further £2,000 to that kind of premium if you want your car fitted with all-wheel drive, which would then mean a budget that would see you spending around £36,000, much the same kind of cash as you'd need for a decently specified compact SUV with a premium badge, cars like Audi's Q5, BMW's X3 or Volvo's own XC60. That sounds quite a tempting proposition in principle if you don't happen to like SUVs, and it probably would be if this Swedish brand had got around to engineering the clever D4 Drive-E diesel engine that I've been talking about to work with a 4x4 layout. Unfortunately, they haven't done that, so you'll need to remember that if you specify an XC70 D4 with the all-wheel drive option, it'll come with a very different engine beneath the bonnet. Namely the older, much less efficient Ford-derived 2.4-litre power plant. The same one, indeed, that you'll find tweaked for a bit more power in the all-wheel drive-only D5 model. The only other XC70 model in the range, the 304 brake horsepower T6 all-wheel drive flagship version, gets the only petrol engine Volvo offers in a car of this kind. It'll be vanishingly rare as a result. On to the value proposition we're talking about here, which is an interesting one. Back at its original launch at the turn of the century, this car competed directly with the Audi A6 Allroad. Since then, though, the Audi has forged relentlessly upmarket, to the point where, in its most affordable 3-litre TDI 218 PS form, it's around £7,000 more than a comparable XC70 D5. These days, in fact, this Volvo is priced far more comparably to Audi's much smaller A4 all-road model. But that car probably won't be big enough for typical XC70 buyers. So, what else is there for this Volvo's kind of budget if you don't want a compact RAV4 style SUV, but like a rugged look and appreciate the space you get in a large estate car? Well, essentially, there are 5 main contenders that spring to mind, and all of them are a little cheaper because they carry more mainstream badges. Of these, only Vauxhall's Insignia Country Tourer and Peugeot's 508 RXH are like this XC70 in offering both 2- and 4-wheel drive options. You'd be looking at a saving of around 10% if you went for a standard diesel version of the Peugeot, but you might pay up to 25% less for an equivalent version of the Vauxhall. Residuals, though, would quickly decrease that advantage in each case. In terms of depreciation, the same would be true of the other trio of options worth looking at when it comes to decently sized, ruggedly presented estate cars in this segment. Skoda's Superb Outdoor and Subaru's Forester are both as affordable as the Vauxhall I just mentioned. The Skoda's big inside, but not much use off-road, while the Subaru's smaller inside, but more capable on the mud. It all depends on what's required. Now, you might think that my final suggestion, Volkswagen's Passat Alltrack, might offer a good compromise between these two extremes, but it doesn't feel as special as this Volvo, hasn't got this XC70's wide range of engine options, potentially costs much more to run, and isn't really very much cheaper. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is an XC70 that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Volvo has been with the standard spec. And the answer is that quite a lot's included, even at the bottom end of the range. All models come complete with LED daytime running lights, 17-inch alloy wheels, a power-operated tailgate, roof rails, an alarm, power folding mirrors and rear parking sensors. Inside, there's the Sensus Connect infotainment system with Bluetooth, satellite navigation and a high-performance sound DAB stereo, controllable via either a 7-inch colour screen or from controls on the leather-stitched steering wheel. All versions also get leather upholstery, climate control, cruise control, rain-sensing wipers, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, and the usual power for windows and mirrors. And you get Volvo On Call, the brand's roadside assistance and emergency setup, which can be combined with your smartphone once you've connected it through the Bluetooth linking system. Now, using Volvo On Call, you can even activate your car's cabin heater remotely via SMS text messaging, so your XC70 will be toasting warm inside by the time you leave your front door. Neat. As for options, well, parents will want to look at the family pack, which includes twin child booster seats that fold out from the rear seat cushions. Or perhaps the winter pack, which adds heated front seats, a headlight cleaning system, and a heated front windscreen. Other nice-to-have touches include a heated steering wheel and an improved Harman Kardon premium sound system with 12 speakers and Direct Live sound enhancement software for concert hall quality. Those in search of a more dynamic drive might also want to consider the 4C active chassis system, which allows you to manually select between 3 suspension settings to suit the mood that you're in and the road that you're on. If luxury is more your thing, then you might also want to look at the rear seat entertainment system with its twin 8-inch colour screens, or the Inscription interior package that offers a complete upgrade of the interior using soft stitched leather upholstery. Perhaps, though, a more sensible way of spending any extra cash you might have in your budget would be to specify the active bending xenon headlamps that follow bends in the road and expand your vision range at night by about 230%, gaining for you up to 45 extra metres of braking. On the subject of safety, there's also the option of a driver support pack, including a whole raft of electronic cleverness. Collision warning with full auto brake is a system that scans the road ahead for potential accidents at higher speeds, while pedestrian and cyclist detection specifically targets people and bikers. ACC, adaptive cruise control, and distance alert use a radar to keep you a safe distance from the car ahead on the highway, while on automatic models there's also a Q Assist feature that senses a highway tailback and can automatically take you right back to a standstill and off again without leaving cruise control. The BLIS blind spot information system with cross-traffic alert will stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another car. There's a lane departure warning system to stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. And DAC driver alert control will monitor your driving reactions during a journey and suggest a stop for a restorative coffee if the electronics sense that you're getting drowsy. Finally, there's a roadside information display that shows speed limit and road warning signs on the dash as you pass them, and active high beam that'll automatically dip your high beam for you at night in the face of oncoming traffic. Now, with that little lot fitted, you'll be doing very well indeed to have an accident in this car. Safety provision, in fact, is what really makes this car stand out. Volvo safety used to be all about protecting you after you'd had an accident. Now, more laudably, it's more about making sure you don't have one in the first place. Headlining the standard features is the impressive city safety system. This is Volvo's technology for avoiding low-speed collisions in city traffic and tailbacks. If you're about to drive into the vehicle in front and the electronics sense that you're not going to react, the car will brake itself. Now, Volvo was the first manufacturer in the world to offer this type of setup as standard. There's plenty of other electronic assistance too, including the DSTC Dynamic Stability and Traction Control package. Passive safety kit, meanwhile, includes twin front, side and curtain airbags that work with Volvo's SIPS side impact protection system, plus WHIPS anti-whiplash head restraints and Isofix child seat fastenings. However you choose to exactly classify it, this XC70 is an executive class car, but it needn't come with executive segment operating costs. Quite the opposite, in fact. What if I were to tell you that the fuel and CO2 costs of running one of these could be about the same as a little 1.5 litre Ford Fiesta diesel Super Mini? Well, that's just what I'm going to tell you. Fitted with Volvo's latest generation Drive-E 2-litre diesel engine, an XC70 D4 two-wheel drive variant, like the one I'm trying here, delivers 62.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 117 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's significantly better than you'd achieve in any one of this model's direct rivals. In fact, some of these are way off this Volvo's pace in this regard, notably Volkswagen's Passat all-track 2-litre TDI 177 PS and Skoda's superb outdoor 2-litre TDI 170. Cars that'll cost you about 20% more to run if you're comparing against this XC70's D4 Drive-E engine. So, how has Volvo done it? As you would expect, the D4 Drive-E engine formula includes fuel-saving electric power steering and a stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. But the technology goes a lot deeper than that. Now, I won't go into the technicalities, but the savings have been achieved through things like the reduction of inner friction in the engine, more precise fuel injection, smart heat management in the engine, advanced combustion control, and the use of a special fuel pump. Competitors really need to take one of these Drive-E engines apart and see how it's all been done. Your running cost returns aren't even too significantly affected if, as I probably would, you specify your two-wheel drive XC70 D4 with Volvo's high-tech 8-speed automatic gearbox. Expect 57.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 129 grams per kilometre. That's because this auto transmission has a clever Eco Plus feature that, when activated, softens the throttle response, tweaks the climate control and the turbo cut-in point, changes the gear shift pattern and adds an Eco Coast function that deactivates engine braking when cruising. As for the rest of the XC70 lineup, well, I've mentioned elsewhere in this film that if you specify your XC70 D4 with all-wheel drive, it'll come with an older tech and larger 2.4 litre diesel engine beneath the bonnet, a unit that'll cost you significantly more to run, returning 53.3 miles to the gallon and 139 grams per kilometre of CO2 in manual form, or 44.1 miles to the gallon and 169 grams per kilometre of CO2 as a 6-speed automatic. The pokier D5 all-wheel drive variant returns exactly the same figures if ordered with a manual gearbox. For the sake of completion, I'll also give you the stats for the minority interest, petrol-powered, auto-only T6 all-wheel drive flagship version, 26.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and a smoky 248 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Well, assuming you don't go too mad on the options list, you should find residual values to be strong. There's always a ready market for good used XC70 models. Insurance groupings are quite affordable too. You're looking at groups 28 to 29E for the D4 and group 30E for the D5. There's also Volvo On Call, a downloadable mobile app that puts you in constant touch with your car. Via this, you can check your fuel, request roadside assistance or emergency help, or report your vehicle stolen and have it tracked for easy retrieval. The app will even help you locate your car if you've forgotten exactly where you parked it. And if you lock your keys inside your XC70, it can remotely unlock the doors for you. Very clever. Volvo sells 5 standard V70 models for every XC70 it sells in Europe, a ratio which is exactly reversed in the States, where this car is 5 times more popular. So who has it right? On paper, you can't help wondering whether an XC is really worth its premium, but on the road, it's a car that might well grow on you. It certainly looked great as Kenneth Branagh's car of choice, pounding through the Swedish countryside in the BBC TV detective series Wallander. Potential owners who'd rather not parade around in an SUV that might draw all the wrong sort of attention see this Volvo's image as being lower profile, but at the same time, in many ways, harder hitting. It's an appealing balance. Alright, so these are hardly unique virtues in an all-wheel drive estate, but you have to point out that many of this car's most obvious rivals are either smaller or considerably more expensive. They also cost more to run if your comparison is with the two-wheel drive D4 Drive-E diesel model that I've been trying here. This engine is extremely impressive, which makes it all the more frustrating that you can't have it mated to all-wheel drive. In the final analysis, this XC70 is everything you'd expect a go-anywhere Volvo estate to be. Not especially dynamic to drive, but rugged, practical, beautifully engineered and supremely reliable. It's very Scandinavian.